All right. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for PQLs to Deals, leveraging marketing metrics for pre-sales wins with my favorite marketer, Betty Mock. My name is Judy Kimball. I am the Senior Director of Demand Generation here at Consensus, and I will be moderating today's session. So DEMOFEST, of course, is brought to you by Consensus. Transform how you sell with Consensus, the first product experience platform. Automate demos, drive faster decisions, and accelerate growth. You can learn more at goconsensus.com or click Watch a Demo at the top of your screen. We encourage you to participate in today's session. I'll be watching the chat, as will Betty. You can find that on the right-hand side of your console. And lastly, the speaker will answer any of your questions. So Betty will answer any of your questions at the end of the session. So go ahead and ask your questions at any time in that Q&A box. And if at any time you are having technical difficulties, head to the gear at the bottom of your screen. This is where you'll see a help document to troubleshoot any of the common issues. All right, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Betty Mock. Betty is the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Consensus. And with that, I will turn the rest of the time over to you, Betty. Let me just go ahead and stop sharing my screen so you can take over.
Wonderful. Thank you, Judy. I'm so glad you're my moderator because if I get a difficult question, I know who to call for a friend.
Okay, well, I'll be paying attention then to hop on if I need to.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining, for all of you who are choosing to spend your time with me today. This is a wonderful opportunity to unpack something that is near and dear to my heart, taking product experiences and using it to unlock multi-threaded demand gen engine. And the way we're going to do that is using PQLs to drive deals. I'm just going to, okay, great. So before we start, one of the things I like to do is first understand who I'm talking to. So if you could put in the poll your answer to this question, what best describes your function? And it's going to be a way to help me tailor the conversation to meet your needs. And if other meets what your role is, then please put it in the chat. And it's a great way for me to understand what's going to be most relevant to you today. I'll give you a second to answer the poll. All right. Well, thank you for that. As expected, it feels like a majority of the audience here is pre-sales with a lot of sales and marketing folks instead as well. And this is to be expected as DEMOFEST largely attracts a pre-sales audience, but over the years, we start to see more and more marketers and sales leaders join us. And so it's just so wonderful to have you all here with us today, and looking forward to diving in. And I love, content creator, pre-sales operations. Okay, wonderful. All right. So let's dive in. Okay, so today, let's talk about what we're going to cover. First, we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in B2B demand gen. What are some of the challenges that we are facing in our space and the opportunities and unlocks? And one of the ways we think about that is the genius of sales and pre-sales. How can it be unlocked to lean into new opportunities? And then we'll close with practical strategies for how do you build a PQL motion. It'll include data as the foundation and some tips and tricks for how to get started. So let's dive right in. So if you ask marketers today, I think that you will get a lot of validation that B2B marketing is harder today than it has ever been before. And this comes from benchmarking and research and articles in our space and even trend lines. And so when you unpack, well, why could that be happening? What we see is three things. First is a decline in paid media growth. Over the last 5 to 7 years, you've seen nothing but an upward trajectory of paid media spend and growth. But in recent years, with the advent of shrinking budgets and AI, you're actually seeing a decline. And so $1 spent on LinkedIn right now is yielding less than it did last year. And same with Google and so on and so forth. And so that historical tried and true model that marketers have leaned on to drive growth is no longer in play as a meaningful part of your growth trajectory to just throw more dollars into the equation. One of the drivers of that is that prospects are just less engaged these days. It's getting harder and harder to engage them. You're getting less attention, and it's more challenging to get someone to convert and show interest. And that's largely because they're defining their own path, whether it is researching review sites or doing their own research with their peer groups. They're defining their own path. And what we see in research is that 70% of their decision making is already happening before they come to your doorstep. So that really limits your ability to influence the flow and drive the conversation. And all of this culminates into a series of challenges that you might have already heard. And so what's the answer? You focus on more leads, right? It's obvious. Do more. As my 2-year-old daughter would say, wrong, mommy. That's not the right approach. And so she is, like very quick to say, wrong, no, that's not the answer that we see here today. And that's because buyers are just not engaging in content. And so this idea of do more is just not going to yield the right outcomes like you might have 3 years ago or 5 years ago. And that's because a typical funnel actually creates very narrow set of outcomes. It takes 1,000 MQLs to yield 13 closed won deals. That's a 1.3% outcome. And a year ago, it might have been 2%. Next year, it might be 1%. And so we're at the precipice of change in this historical model that we might have been leaning on that is now shifting around us. And so the answer is not to create another 1,000 MQLs because that makes it more and more challenging to yield the same outcomes. And that's largely because of the things that are happening around us. With the advent of AI and tech stack and consolidation requirements from CFOs, combined with shrinking budgets and larger buying groups in the decision-making process, we're seeing the bar get higher and higher for a champion to be willing to put their neck on the line and say, yes, I'm willing to make a purchase, and yes, it's going to have meaningful impact on our business. And then you combine that with macroeconomic risk and these days political risk and high interest rates, that makes it more and more difficult for a buyer to make a meaningful decision and champion a purchase decision within their organizations. So I promise I did not come here to depress you all. That is not the plan, and you're not going to walk out of here depressed. So that's my commitment to you. Let's hang in there. Because the best part of this is that unprecedented times really inspire creativity. It creates an opportunity for those that are best in class to win. And if you lean into this as an opportunity, this is how you're going to beat your competition and be world class. And that's what I find to be most exciting. So here's my advice. Throw out the playbook. The traditional method of optimize, analyze your funnel, see what you can do to squeeze out that next 0.5% is just not going to yield the outcome you need. We all need step function change. And this is something that we can do together. The opportunity is so simple. It's to give prospects what they want. And you've heard that as a theme throughout in the earlier keynote from Doug and David Yokelson, and then even in the Access Group presentation from Rob Dean, it's really about giving the prospects that are at your doorstep what they're asking for. So before we unpack it, I would just love to hear from you. A little bit about your experience. So if you take your prospect experience, how long does it take to see a live demo from the day somebody requests it on your website? They click a button that says live demo request, and when do they actually see it? And I'll just give you a second to answer. Okay, so I can't, let me see. Okay, well, it seems like a majority is 4 to 6 days, although there's some in 7+ and 1 to 3. You guys are ahead of the curve, actually. And that's wonderful to see. Actually, as we dive into our 2025 Sales Engineering Compensation and Workload Report, this is a report that we publish every year and refresh, and it's been going for 6 years running. And every time I'm surprised by the answer to this question, because the average time it takes typically for someone to speak to a salesperson and view a live demo is typically 6 to 10 days and sometimes longer. And that's because we throw up a lot of barriers between marketing handing off to SDR making a call to qualify someone, to the handoff to sales. Oh, wait, your AE is out on vacation for a week and you have to push it out by a few more days. We don't make it easy. And not only that, it's a very siloed experience. So it feels like you're being passed from one place to another in this process. And that is what ultimately drives the great divide. Prospects really want to learn. They want to understand what it's like to be a customer, to use the product, to roll it out to their employee base. CFOs want to make sure that they're going to get ROI from the decision. A leader or a peer might actually want to know what it's going to be, what is the experience within their organization. These are all different ways that buyers and prospects want to learn and try before they make a decision. But we don't make it easy. And so our vision and the opportunity is to scale up the genius of pre-sales and to some degree sales further up in the funnel. And that's the magic. Give prospects what they want. And what they want is product experiences that are personalized to their needs, how they want to engage, answering the questions that they want to answer in that stage in the funnel. And we see this as an opportunity for PQLs. This gives you the opportunity to give access to buyers with personalized experiences. They can get hands-on experience and engagement with your product. And they can pass that information on to their broader buying group so that they don't have to wait for a broader group to get on a call and have a conversation. Everyone can be in a product experience, getting a demo and learning about it. This information becomes intent data that can go to your AEs. And that way you'll know what's most important to this buyer and use that information to progress the deal cycle. You can also take the information and engage the broader stakeholder group. And this creates a winning combination between PQL, a winning combination between the buyer and the seller to engage in new ways. And this yields a product quality lead, or a PQL. Our vision, or our way of delivering that, is a digitally enabled experience that is selling alongside you. It basically can operate along the full funnel, and it engages in ways that allows a buyer to engage how they want to buy, whether it is watching a video demo, being hands-on in a tour, a digital tour, or exploring deeper in a simulation with data. These are all a myriad of ways that someone might want to engage in your product and learn more about the decision-making process before actually moving forward to talk to a salesperson. And this is the perfect combination of what makes a strong product quality lead. The three criteria that we see that comprises of a PQL: someone who matches your ideal customer profile. You're delivering a quality person to your sales rep. Combined with, they've shown interest in your product. They have a real desire to get to know what your product offers and what that experience is. And third, they've actually experienced product value. By viewing demos, by engaging in a tour, by clicking through on the experience, they are able to see what it's going to be like. And it allows them to raise their hand to move forward in the conversation. Here's an example. And we call it eating our own dog food. I guess that's a terrible term, but you really want to consume what you are saying and show that it works. And this is what we use on our website. And so on our homepage, in the hero image, you can click on Watch a Demo. And this surfaces up a vision demo that gives a high-level overview. You can watch it, you can skip it, and then you transition into a page that allows you to show what's most important in your experience. And when that happens, then it surfaces a custom demo that's personalized to your needs. That it can involve video, it can include tours, it can be multifaceted to meet your needs. And this is a really cool way to create personalization using data that is provided to you. And the best part is, oftentimes we see these demos be shared to a buying group, which then unlocks more people into the decision-making process. So it's a wonderful example of putting forward your product earlier in the experience. And then it becomes multifaceted because you've got the high-level vision demo, someone who wants to deep dive into sort of more of a deeper demo to see features and functionality and get an understanding of what it's like to be a user and a customer. Then as they engage more interest, you can do a deeper tour and speak to a sales rep. And all of this comes together in a guided journey that you can design based on the answers to specific questions, based on what they raise their hand that they want to learn about. It's a really wonderful way to design the experience based on the needs of the wide range in buyers that you have. And ultimately, we see this as a winning combination by leveraging the work of the pre-sales, the sales team, and the marketing team, and have it all come together is ultimately what we want to see. And I love that, Judy, you're saying it's drinking the Kool-Aid. Yes, I agree with you. That was a better term. Thank you for that. All right. Okay. And this is the best part, y'all. Like I talked about, do you need more leads? No. It's about you're shifting from the equation from more volume to delivering value. And it's about taking the leads you already have and converting more of them by giving buyers what they crave. What they really want when they come to your website is not to be passed off from one person to another. It's about product experiences. They really want to deeply understand what they're looking for. And so this is the opportunity. And it feels so simple too, doesn't it? And here's an example of a typical funnel. Historically, you might have had two different flows. One is hand raisers, and that is your nirvana of leads that say, I want to speak to a sales rep and I want to do so today. Those are awesome. And then you have the folks that kind of like limp in, an MQL. They convert at a really low rate. You're still passing those leads over to sales reps, but they largely operate like outbound calls because all that an MQL is with a content lead is someone who read a piece of content and engaged. And so they're just not quite there yet from a readiness to buy perspective or a readiness to talk to sales. And so that's historically a typical equation that we see with a lot of the clients that we work with. And a model that I started with too in my earlier demand gen days. Now enter PQLs. And what we see as the magic of a PQL is that it instantly surfaces people that are in the middle who are not ready to talk to sales and are more interested than just a content piece. And these are really awesome leads that convert at 6x the rate of MQLs. So it's more higher quality, more meaningful, and a better experience for those that sit in the middle and now give you the ability to manage this as a lead type. And the proof is in the details. What we see on average is that PQLs outperform MQLs by a rate of 6x. And that range is actually quite wide. On the low side, we see 4. On the high side, it can be like 12x. So it's a pretty wide range, but generally we see minimum of around 6x. And clients that implement this as a solution see instant impact where it can be about up to upwards of 40% of inbound demand. And it makes sense, right? Because not all leads will be hand raisers. Then you get a smaller portion from MQLs. These are the folks that sit in the middle that really want to engage, but they're just not yet there. This can be a meaningful audience. The best part is that it yields a higher reward with a lot less effort. This is a great lead that a salesperson is very happy to engage because they're educated. This is someone who has already learned and engaged. And one of the opportunities, and honestly, I believe the reason why this works so well is because you're shifting to where the market is going with this model. Historically, the model was scale and volume plays worked. But now you really need hyper personalization because buyers, B2B leaders, they expect more. And it really allows you to lean into things like account based marketing, which is what's going to help you source higher value accounts by bringing them along in the full journey. And it's going to feel like a really personalized experience. By delivering buyers what they want to see, when they want to see it, it's going to feel like you're delivering what they're asking for in that moment, in the time that they do it. And it's live 24 hours a day. So they don't have to wait till business hours or to talk to a salesperson. They can be searching at home in the evenings, on the weekends. And we see a lot of that happen actually, especially in the global economy that we operate in these days. But I'm going to pause here because it's not just us, right? Like I've shared some examples of what Consensus is seeing. We're seeing across with our customers. So I'll share with you a couple of live examples. First is from Atlassian. Ken has had great experience implementing a web demo, and it very quickly became their top 5 converting asset. And it delivered quality leads that the sales teams were excited to work. And it's not just them. We have a number of customers that experience this as a new lead flow, more demo views, and just a deeper engagement. Here's a great example from Frontline that I absolutely love because what is cool is that they have a range of products that they offer and wanted to tell the story around what the different offerings are. And so which each offering, you're able to click on it to view a demo. If you want to skip it and move forward, what you can do is provide your information about what you're looking for and what your preferences are, and out pops a series of demos that feel personalized to meet your needs. And so that's a really cool way to just deliver a number of demos across a range of products. And so this is what we're doing. We're rewriting the playbook. And we're doing this in the lens of a buyer. So the old world is MQLs, more and more MQLs. We wall off our data and our demos and make it hard to get a product experience. The handoffs are really disjointed between the different functions in a go-to-market motion. And all of this yields a longer sales cycle from end to end. And now New World Demand Gen is different. It includes experience as a first step in the qualification process. You're engaging the entire buying committee earlier in the process than you would historically. And the way to unlock that is frictionless access to resourcing and then collaboration across all the different go-to-market functions to yield a better outcome. And all of this drives a higher close rate, and we see this time and time again. So I've covered a lot, but I also want to talk a little bit about what it is that you can see gains in. One other thing that we talk about is in-person events. And this is a great use case for leveraging a digital demo by having it available at your booth at a trade show or an event or a conference. You can surface these experiences and then collect information very quickly. You can use it to inform your messaging and positioning. As you start to see trend lines on what people are interested in, you pull it forward. And then ultimately, it also shows impact in terms of what's working and what's not working. Some of the other things that you can do is create smarter prioritization, where you time the response rates for each lead type based on the quality of that lead. And so you may work hand raisers first, PQLs second, MQLs third. And it creates an opportunity for more data-driven personalization, and so that you can serve up what is meaningful. Because demo behavior and engagement drives deal acceleration, and the two go hand in hand. And so it's an opportunity that you can unlock. All right. So next, let's talk a little bit about how to build and measure it. And I hope you're along for the ride and you're like, yes, this sounds amazing. Well, the next step is to say, well, how do we build this? How do we set it up for success? And that's what I'll cover here. The first thing we want to try to do is tie demos to opportunities. And that's to make sure that you understand what are the demos that are yielding the PQLs that you want, and what's happening with those PQLs when you engage. When you can track these lead types across the entire funnel, then you can start to see the impact of each one and what's resonating and what's not. Second is stakeholder engagement. Track to see what they're doing, what they're watching, what they're engaging in, and who they're sharing it with. And last is an opportunity to showcase your success. What's working, what's not working, what is the achievement here and impact. And the new narrative then becomes, what is the leads influenced? We see upwards of 50% of leads being influenced in this format. You can improve conversions, 4 to 8x of traditional MQLs. And ultimately, the goal is dollars converted, both in the pipeline as well as closed won. And we have customers that yield their entire funnel and see uplift in their entire funnel in this process. So here's what I would do. You might say, well, okay, that sounds good. How do I get started? The first thing I try to do is map the customer's journey. Go through your website, figure out what are some of the ways that they might come visit. What are some of the experiences that they might have on your website? We call this customer empathy at Consensus, or walking in your customer's shoes. It's a really good experience to go through. Then I typically go through my competitor websites and compare and contrast the experiences and figure out what works and what doesn't. And the third thing I do is I look at industry leaders that I aspire to grow to become. And I look at their experiences as I look for best in class options, and I use that to influence the the buyer's journey. And all of that information will allow you to curate the right touch points in your experience that will yield the best outcomes. And it does require some testing. And so this is an opportunity for you to start with some baby steps, add a couple of touch points here and there, serve it up, see how it's working, and then play with it. Second, is to create the data flows. Making sure that you know when someone's clicking on it, who is clicking on it, and what is their experience through the funnel, and what are the variables that impact outcomes is what's going to set you up for success. And as you kind of progress in this experience, there are other ways that you can leverage the product experience to serve up campaigns further up funnel. And this requires collaboration across sales, marketing, pre-sales, and in some cases CS as well, to design joint campaigns based on what you're seeing in the demo experience. You can leverage that subject matter knowledge for content creation that allows you to create FAQs or content that answers the questions even before it gets asked. And the best part is sharing customer insights, because all of this data allows you to identify trend lines. And one example that we get is that when someone sees a demo, upwards of more than, when we have 6 shares or 6 times a demo shared, there is a 67+% chance that deal will close. And so when you have data like that, then you can serve it up to your team members and your sales team to say, get that number to 6, because it's going to yield a higher output and a faster conversion rate. And so those are the cool things that you can do with the data. And there's many, many more ideas from where that comes. Okay. So in closing, before I open up to questions, and please type in any questions that you might have, I just want to express my excitement that you're here, that you're thinking about PQLs, that you're thinking about how to advance your marketing, sales, and pre-sales motion and do that together. And you might already have a PQL motion, and it's a way for you to accelerate it. You may be starting from scratch. There are a lot of ways that you can do this. It's not just consensus that you need to think about. You can think about. There are PLG motions. There are free trials. Whether you're selling to SMB or enterprise, they're going to have different needs. And so designing the program to meet the needs of your buyers and giving them what they want and what they crave is where the real opportunity is at. And so the world is your oyster in this regard. And it's really cool that it's the simplest concept of giving buyers what they want, walking in their shoes and designing the experience that they're looking for is what is going to yield the right outcomes for your business. And so I encourage you to give it a try, and please reach out with any questions. And I'm going to stop sharing and open up to questions. Judy?
That was awesome. Thanks, Betty. So please go to the Q&A tab and type in any questions you might have. I have a couple in there already, and so we'll get started with those. First question is, this one had an upvote as well, so let's start with here. How do you navigate concern about competitors seeing your product when making it available on your website?
I think the first thing is definitely to wall off anything that's proprietary or that you absolutely can't share. But the reality is that competitors that want to see your product are going to see your product, whether they're dialing a friend to get a demo or bringing in external researchers, right? There's a lot of ways to get access to a product demo. And so keeping that in mind just allows you to unlock opportunity to engage buyers. By walling it off to your buyers just to prevent your competitors to see it is I think a trade-off that you probably don't want to make. And what I would do is take baby steps. So if that's really a concern, take baby steps and see what risk it opens you up to before unlocking all of the information. But I think ultimately you'll find that that's a fair trade-off. For marketers, we get the same feedback about ungating MQLs. for example, and there's always resistance to ungating as sort of a way to get information. But the reality is, driving engagement is always the way to win. And every time I've ungated, I've seen better results as a result of it.
Awesome. Next question. Where should content creation live between marketing and pre-sales?
So I think that content creation is largely the responsibility of marketers up funnel and partnering with pre-sales for down funnel product content. And so we each play a role in terms of what our best, what our strengths are. For marketing, it's more up funnel. For pre-sales, it's more demo content. And so both of us coming together with each of those respective areas of content is the opportunity, and also informing each other of what you're seeing as trend lines in this space. We recently had a Demo IQ campaign that we launched. It's a way for you to kind of fill out a survey that says, how strong is your demo? Where are you sitting relative to best practices? And that largely was built in conjunction with our pre-sales team, right? And so there's a way to kind of like collaborate on campaigns and content that pulls forth what we see in the space and deliver what's most relevant to buyers.
Love that. Yeah, using the pre-sales team as the SME in the content creation is great. Okay, I have another question here. Do you have any suggestions for setting up touch points on websites? Are you referring to links to demos? If yes, would that be primarily vision type demos?
So I think that you want to serve up information depending on where they are in their experience. So at the homepage, I think of it as sort of a funnel where homepage is surface level information. That's a great place for a vision demo where it's high level, gives an overview, and allows them to dive deeper. But on a product page, you might go deep further. And so I think it's two variables that you're thinking about. One, what is the call to action, or what's the link say? And in a lot of cases, it's watch a demo, view a demo, instantaneously see a demo. And then in other cases, it's diving deeper. Like on the product page, what you can do is offer demos relating to specific capabilities, specific products, specific functionality. And so you can get a lot deeper as you kind of like get into the website experience. And it allows you to kind of play with the variety of information you serve up because you're going to get a more interested party the deeper you go. And so that's the way I would design it. What do you think, Judy? You're the website expert here.
The only addition I would make is that it's a real balancing act between going really detailed and scale, right? And so you can do on some of the product pages like click-through tours, right? To show some of the features, but you might not want to go like deep on one feature because the scalability of that might not be there, right? And so the volume of traffic that you get to those pages might not be worth the effort. And so it's a balance that you have to strike. And I know for us, like we're always testing those things and looking at what the traffic looks like. And so there are certain pages where I say, no, it's not worth the time and effort to put together a more detailed click-through demo or video demo, whichever the case may be, because we just don't get the traffic to those pages to make it worth it. And so it's a balancing act. It would be my answer.
Yeah, I love that because it's as much what you choose to do and what you choose not to do, right? And that's where the data is going to drive your decision-making process. And it's where you want to prioritize your time is what's going to have the most impact. So that I love the idea of testing into it and making those decisions like baby steps.
Awesome. We have another question here. If you're an SE leader and you have a newish marketing team really leaning into MQLs, what are the right questions to ask to help understand why we're not leaning into PQLs? Ooh, that's a good question.
Oh, that's juicy. Well, I think that the key is trying to understand what works and how to expand what's working. So, if you have a new team and they're leaning into MQLs, and it's happening for a reason, right? So I would understand what's working in that equation and make suggestions about how you could bolster it. Come to the table with ideas for, well, in that flow, wouldn't it make sense for a demo here? Or this would be a great possibility. That's one approach to it. Another approach is to share best practices and case studies. So, one way to do it is, I have a friend who's achieving great results. What do you think? Have you considered it? And so that's a way to widen the aperture in terms of a willingness to consider new ideas. And the third is also, and I will credit our sales leader, CRO Rex, he will send articles to us and he'll say, have you thought of this? I read this on LinkedIn, or I saw this as an article. And I, as a marketing leader, will take every one of those situations and take it into consideration and read about it and think about it, because we're always striving to learn and do better, right? Especially with information that's changing around us and the advent of AI. I love to learn. And so any one of those three methods could be a way in for you to engage your marketing counterparts to consider new opportunities. Any other ideas, Judy? What did I miss?
What I would add is you could start with a nurture flow after MQL. That includes demos in a nurture flow, because what you'll see, I would guess, because I would guess from our own results, is if you're driving to a demo through an email nurture, those leads are going to convert to opportunity at a much higher rate than the MQLs. And so it might be sort of a stepping stone for them to get comfortable with pushing then the demos or any sort of product experiences on the website, if that's their hesitation. Doing it in email gives you a little bit more control over it, and that could be part of what is blocking them. My experience at prior companies is it's a control thing, and being able to give them access to the product is something that they're not comfortable with, and so doing it in email sort of takes away the risk. And so might be another opportunity to showcase the value that can be gained.
Yeah, I love that idea. It's an idea of crawl, walk, run, test and validate before you kind of lean into it. I also love when someone sends me a really cool website and experience, when you're like, hey, look at this. This was a great way to learn about a product. And so that's another aspect that can be eye-opening to your marketing counterparts. That's a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that is all of our questions. Let me just click over to the tab to make sure I got them all. All right, looks like I did. Great. Well, I will end us off with just a couple of reminders here. Share my screen. So a reminder to stop by the virtual exhibit hall to visit our premier partners who are committed to making this event valuable for all. And don't forget about the raffle. Information on how to enter, as well as the live leaderboard, is in the Docs tab. And lastly, don't let the DemoFest fun end here. We're bringing this show on the road again with DemoFest X in New York City and in May, and London in October. Betty and I will both be there at both of those. So come meet us in person. You can register at demofest.com or head to the link in the Docs tab. And then lastly, I will flash up the sessions that are upcoming next, and you will automatically be pushed to the next session in your track, or you can switch tracks by toggling to the agenda at the top of the screen. Thank you, Betty, so much for your insights and knowledge on PQLs. And thank you all for joining. Enjoy the rest of DemoFest.